Welcome back to the American Political Zone. We're joined by Volker Fremuth, and you've been very patiently sitting through that whole first segment without talking about your book. Why don't you tell us a bit about it now?
Well, the conversation is very compelling, whether it's about my book or not. So I thank you very much for the opportunity. And actually, it's I've created a book which is something that it's really talks about political and corporate corruption, and it really asks the questions about our environment today and how willing we are to allow technology to rule what we do, and the control that both our government or the companies that create this technology have over us. It asks those questions in an entertaining way so that you can take it in whether you're politically active or not, and both sides of the aisle would probably accept a little bit of entertainment, but it gets you to think. I'd like to believe it gets you to think. So it really offers a what-if scenario and drives you into thinking about those things, about our privacy and our role of government and the larger corporate entities that we have.
Well, I actually read the book cover to cover.
Thank you.
And as I mentioned to you off air, the one problem I had was that I couldn't put it down. And it's one of those books, I'm telling you, you've got to read this book. It's 5 stars out of 5 stars. But start early in the evening so you can still get some sleep, because you're not going to want to put it down. I found this book was so close to reality that it was almost like I was waiting to get to the end to find out what our future was going to be like.
Do you find that it's easier to discuss some of these very sensitive issues in fiction than it would be in fact?
Well, it's a way for us to make it consumable by everybody. In a way, as I had said earlier, it's an entertainment, and people will consume it this way, but it allows you to think, and it is easier to discuss it this way. When I originally wrote the book, this was actually, I completed it mid-2012, and I was seeking a publisher at the time, and I self-published the book when I had when I saw the news starting to really imitate what the book was already espousing to, which is that once again, the NSA scandal that you saw this is government coming into our lives and seeing what every aspect of our lives and actually taking the opportunity to potentially know more about us, which leads us toward control.
That's the scary part, that we've sort of almost become desensitized to these types of controls over our lives. Mm-hmm. We were talking off air again about car insurance and how there's a company where you can plug in something into your car.
Right. It tells the insurance company how much you drive, whether you're doing it on a regular basis, like to a work site or for pleasure. And the unfortunate aspect of that is that now some governments are talking about using that type of device to tax you, that you'll be taxed on the mileage that you drive. So we're seeing how this stuff that started off as being private industry becomes something that big government can use to really invade your privacy. We've seen that in so many other areas. We know that on some of the social media sites. If you put in that you're looking for a new desk lamp, you'll find that every time you turn on your computer and you go on the internet, there's a dozen ads for desk lamps there. You worry whether that technology can't be used for the government if you're going to a site that the government doesn't like. If you're going to a conservative site and the government is a leftist government, will they start doing things to you? We've certainly saw the abuse of a federal agency when the IRS was used as a political weapon to target people who disagreed with the president. How much further is this going to go?
And the real danger here is how covertly it can be done when the public doesn't actually see it happening, that the news media that they see becomes government controlled. We start losing the right to make our own decisions, whether or not to decide whether a government is effective or whether or not they're doing the things that actually work, because they're starting to exert control. I think it was Mark Twain who said, if you don't read the newspapers, you're uninformed. If you do read the newspapers, you are misinformed. And this is actually, it goes back that far, but this is actually what electronic media allows us to do now. Some of the issues that I discuss in the book is what happens is people will react to the environment they perceive, not necessarily the environment they're actually living in.
Well, I don't know if you're aware of this, but this administration actually proposed putting monitors in newsrooms for our media. So now when you talk about that is so much, Cold War Soviet tactic of other foreign and communist countries.
It's so over the top that you almost wonder why there wasn't extreme outrage. And I did hear that story. I was incredibly, I was horrified at that concept, because they're basically saying out loud, we're going to control what you get to see and hear as a public.
Volker, thank you so much for joining us. I'd just like to put a little plug in for you. Please, everybody, pick up this book, The Workshop by Volker Fremuth. It's available, if I'm not mistaken, on Amazon.com.
It's on Amazon.com,
And like I
Barnes &
said,
Noble.
my one thing is, I tell you, you got to start the book early in the night because you're not going to want to put it down. And it's a really great book. Thank you for joining us. And you've been with us today on the American Political Zone. Stay tuned for next week's show because we'll bring you some more good stuff.